Hey, what's good, people? This is episode 215. I'm Jason DeBias. This guy looks like Justin Branson. Looks like him. Smiles like him. We're going to find out. Buckle up, people. The episode starts right now. It's good, Justin.
Jason, you're the man. Let's go.
You know, this is a long time in the making, my man. I'm glad to have met you, glad to have a conversation with you. And to call you an interesting person would be an understatement. So, um, Jesus, how far did you go? How far did you travel?
Just from the OC.
I'm definitely gonna open the present after this, the OC. So you are something I call the EMF guy, like a electromagnetic fields. Pretend I'm a moron from Brooklyn and just give me a brief synopsis on exactly what electromagnetic fields is. Um, the only thing I knew about electromagnetic fields, I'd read comics in the morning. I knew Magneto's mutant ability was manipulation of Earth's magnetic field. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll start there. Earth has a magnetic resonance. We're all electric beings. Every living organism has a resonance, and it's based on scalar waves. Big word. They're unpolarized waves. They distribute equally in every direction. That is the framework, Jason, for every living organism. They all have an electromagnetic field or resonance. And ours goes out about 6 to 8 feet, right? That's why they're like, stay 6 to 8 feet away from somebody. So that's how this whole planet works. If I drop a pebble into a pond and then perpendicular, like right above it, does the splash of the pond go out equally in every direction?
Depends on the pebble.
If I just drop a pebble in, it just goes splash.
That's the question,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Does
the
it?
question. Yeah, it goes out circular, right?
Right.
Why doesn't it go in a straight line? If I drop it down, this is the water. Why doesn't the splash go right to the right?
Because asymmetric impact doesn't cause a symmetric result or something, or
Right.
opposite or something like that.
Well, and the other part of that, like a bigger answer would be basically because they're unpolarized waves. The waves of our universe aren't meant to go in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the water distributes equally in other directions. And there's more to that, what you're saying. But that would be another example of how our universe is based on waveforms that are unpolarized, that distribute equally in every direction. Now, there are these things, those are the native ones. There are these things called non-native electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic radiation. Those ones are all one directional or they don't work. So that's a big thing is they are polarizing for our body. They're one directional waveforms. They're designed to only go in one direction. That's why you see cell tower panels facing every direction. It's because they can only bend them about 30 degrees, but they got to broadcast them in a certain angle to pick up those signals. And that's how they're made. So all electricity, dirty electricity, wireless signals, they're essentially a one-directional waveform that are polarizing for our body. So when we introduce something different, a different waveform into our environment, it's disruptive for our bodies.
Now, I kind of got to know you a little bit because I have a mutual friend, Rob McLean. Well, Rob McLean's not just a friend. Rob McLean's a brother from another mother. One of these super athletes, like hits with both hands. He's on the beach volleyball scene, and just kind of a guy looking for a partner. The guy plays well with everybody. He has this astute way of process and preparation, whatever, that almost makes him a little bit of a man child. But I guess for my volleyball people, watch out for him next year, or definitely keep an eye on him. He's going to be fantastic. But Rob had some issues. Were those issues electromagnetically related? Am I allowed to steer the conversation in this direction, or was that unrelated?
No, it's okay. His were, well, he is just low back stuff is more what I think we were focused on. So when I do see athletes, so yeah, again, I started athleticism.com almost 30 years ago, working with professional athletes and worked with lots of them over the years in most major sports. And
I should have started with that. What's your title? What do you do? Guys, he's not jacking people for Nissan trucks on the drive-through, okay? Get your food, leave it in the car, get out. Jesus, this is a professional. Sorry. Should we hit the rewind button and tell everybody what you do? And then we'll go to Rob.
sure. Well, that's what brought me to Rob, because I ran the medical treatment tent at the Laguna Beach Open
Okay.
several years ago. And so Rob came in and I did some nerve work on him. And he just loved it. It was one of the coolest treatments he'd had. I did some stretching and yeah, we do fascia work, and then I reset the nerve. So we can fire the muscles to their endpoints, the nerves to get to the muscles. So the responses are just instant. So these guys end up being about 18% stronger right away. So he felt that when he played, and then he followed up years later and found me. So that's where we came across Rob. But yeah, before that, I started athleticism.com almost 30 years ago and work with lots of athletes and nerve fascia work, treat concussions. It's all sports performance coordination work, and stuff's awesome. It works well. But what I found in that, which leads us to the EMF stuff, Jace, is we had one of the strongest, fittest guys come in wearing a smartwatch, and then he had pain in his wrist, and I said, "Well, take the radiation off your wrist," and
Jesus.
he takes the smartwatch off, and the pain goes away. And so that's what got me into the EMF space over a dozen years ago. And now EMFrocks.com, we have one of the leading natural EMF protection products sold through Doctor Clinic. So it's not just EMF, but it's me still working with lots of pros in the space, but then being able to help so many more people through our products.
How did the Apple Watch cause problems with his wrist?
Because it's radiation. So think about it. All these technologies, whether it's a smartwatch or a phone, they have 5 different signals going on at one time. Cellular, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, broadband spectrum, which is where all the apps use for tracking. They track everything. And then you have the GPS on it, so they know where you are. So every one of those is a minimum about 2.45 gigahertz. Well, let's break that down and do a wave per second so everyone can understand. 2.45 gigahertz. Gigahertz means billions of waves per second. Okay. Megahertz, not megahertz, megahertz.
Megahertz, yeah.
Is
I was like, I got it.
millions of waves per second. So we look at everything in a wave per second. So this cell phone, the slowest signal strength that it runs on is 2.45 gigahertz or 2.45 billion waves per second. That's the same bandwidth that destructures water. So they're revving this stuff up to dehydrate us, and then you times that times 5, because you have about 5 of that signal strength, that we said. That's what our bodies are being inundated with. But that's way over 10 zeros faster than what our bodies are designed at. When we're sleeping, we look at our delta theta brainwave states, they're 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz or waves per second. 1 to 8 waves per second. Oof. And then when our athletes are in the flow state, when they're in the zone, and Rob is just bombing, can't miss, you can't get it by him, nothing touches the sand on his side. He's in an alpha brainwave state, about 9 to 13 hertz or waves per second. We rev 1 with that Schumann resonance about 7.83 hertz. Now, this stuff is in the billions of waves per second. So that's where it gets really challenging, because they're a polarizing one-directional waveform. So, Rob, we had 10 zeros to someone's bank account. Is that a big deal?
Yes.
Yeah, but for most people, it would be life-changing.
Yeah.
You had 10 zeros to the speed of a one-directional waveform in our environment. It's really disruptive for the chemistry of the body.
Okay, that makes sense. I was actually, while you were doing that, I was, because I don't have someone checking my show. I wanted to see what Apple said about like their RF exposure information, and actually, let's pull it up. let's let's see what let's see what they say
Let's see what they're making
as far
up.
as things are safe and effective are concerned.
Well, they
Um,
tested on dummies. They don't even use real people, and they have proximity protocols for absorption ratings. They don't test it right next to your head. They
right
test it, inches away from you.
there it is. Okay, in some countries, the SAR limit is 1.6 watts per kilogram, average over 1 gram of tissue used against the head for 4.0 watts per kilogram, average over 10 grams of tissue. Now, you know what this is for the layman, this is fodder for someone to just be like, they're saying this, and they just throw their hands up, right?
Right.
Now, from a medical perspective or from a scientific perspective, I kind of get it, right? There's a hard stop, and this is where you kind of like need someone. But from a statistical perspective, you look for looking like me. I took intro to statistics. I took quantitative reasoning in college, and it kind of stuck with me. So there's a lot of studies out there. I'm just like, how are you going to say this when this is missing that? Or how does that say this? Do you understand what I'm
Right.
saying? Like statistically, the dots don't connect. Then you start questioning the sciences, which, by the way, in my humble opinion, that's why I think what we're supposed to do. There, for YouTube purposes, vaccines are safe and effective. Um, um, so, what did you get from that sentence? Help me
Right.
out.
No, so they're saying that how much wattage and how far away from you
I'll go back to
determines
as you're
on how
talking.
much you absorb. That's basically what they're saying. So if there's a certain amount of wattage, then you're going to absorb certain amount. So the challenge is they don't use real people in these, and it's just information that's on absorption. Well, that's not really the whole story. The whole story is just what you just said. The whole story is that Dr. Martin Pall discovered that there's voltage gated calcium channels. So even low level EMF, all the way up to high level, waveform speed or faster speeds of waveforms, the wireless signals, there's a vibration. There's a vibration that affects our bodies. So no matter how much we're absorbing, if we're only supposed to carry X amount of watts that are non-native, like say 1 or 2, like, and we're carrying, or volts, I should say, and we're carrying 6, like that's what they're saying. The real story, and that's true, we don't want to be carrying that much extra voltage in our system of non-native electricity, but just having the stressor of electricity, dirty electricity, wireless in our environment causes these voltage gated calcium channels to break down. Those are 4 big words for saying the gateway for your cells to derive energy is shut down right away, even with low level electricity in our homes. So then from there, it's an oxidative stress. It calcifies our pineal gland. It's an endocrine disruptor. It's destructuring our water, dehydrating us. And those all lead to all the big health challenges. The first would be the cognitive, and then you go up to level 3, cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular, and then the biggest one now, infertility.
Yeah, and you had me at infertility when I was looking at a previous podcast, because when you use the I word like that, right, and you go through the list of things, when you finish with that, everyone just goes, "Oh," then their antenna goes up a little bit, and it's weird. Like when I'm gonna go back to the Apple Watch thing, just to keep it simple for my New Yorkers, right? Dr. Amen said, if you're hammering your thumb with a hammer, do you take pain medication to make it go away? Or do you stop hammering your thumb? I didn't mean to be all simpleton in such a highly intellectual conversation, which by the way, I knew a lot about, and what I didn't know I brushed up before you came on, and that is rather unique.
So funny.
Yeah,
So
I
true.
feel like one of those doctors, one of those TV doctors. Every time I eat pepperonis, my face breaks out. Don't eat pepperoni.
Well, it's so
The
simple.
bill's up front.
Yeah. But there's some disconnect, Jason, where people don't equate an invisible stressor of electromagnetic radiation in their environment to the biggest stressor in their environment because they can't see it. You're not supposed to see air unless you're in LA and it's all, polluted and smoggy, or maybe you can smell it at some points,
Right.
but you don't typically see it. So there's a big disconnect on the connecting electromagnetic radiation to a stressor because it's invisible.
I think there's a big disconnect on how the information is disseminated, right? Like I just
That
showed you
too.
something that kind of made people feel like easier in mind that they're okay with this. These guys are the experts or whatever. But at the same time, anyone who studied basic mathematics or intro to statistics are like, there's way too much missing. For example, in the social in the beginning when you were talking about the electromagnetic field, like 5 to 6 feet, and we made it like a little social distance joke. In the beginning, social distancing was something that they were calling science until later on they admitted under oath they made it up,
Yeah.
right? Well, the original story was
Right.
it was supposed to be 10 feet,
Right.
and then like the corporations decided that 10 feet was too far. Let's make it 6. And I don't want to veer too much into that rabbit hole because we have so much more fun stuff to talk about. But I will finish by saying that what you say to the media and on the internet is one thing, but what you say in court or what you say under oath is another. So I strongly just encourage people, and I hope this doesn't get me flagged, just read. Doing your own research is called reading. And sometimes reading is hard and sometimes reading is easy, but common denominator, reading is fundamental, right? Even for, dude, I'm a moron from Brooklyn. And I know this. And
No.
I know
No.
these things.
No.
And it's like an inside joke.
Yeah.
Because morons from Brooklyn are like better than like 3/5 of the, 4/5 of the population. We're survivors, for for all the reasons. But we were so let's finish with Rob. Let's continue with Rob and
Yeah.
finish how we helped him and some of the things we got that are helping him recover. Because I have tons of elite athletes like Rob. Some of them are up the higher AVP food chain. Though my bias will admit that none of, as far as conditioning or whatever, and what these people are doing and what Rob can do, I'll land with that. But continue what you were saying about the process and maybe I don't know if there's an end game. It's a cyclical thing. So take me through that.
Yeah. So for Rob, we were just doing nerve work, fascia work, just lengthening out, and yeah, and he's so fine tuned. So not really worried about him. What I do also is I check on if they've been decharged. So sometimes these guys will come in and their vision's off and they're not seeing clearly. And so we use our grounding bags those are hand mine crystals. So we use the Earth's resonance in the bag that we sell through doctor clinics all around the country. And we use that as part of our treatment protocol to recharge him. So beach volleyball is one of my favorite sports. And it's probably one of the best sports you could ever do for your health because you're outside in nature. So you're getting grounded all the time. There's 5 ways that, then there's probably a lot more than 5, but the 5 ones that I think people can grab onto on how being outside in nature feeds our bodies and nourishes our body battery is through grounding, through earthing. We pull the electrons, we get that negative ionic charge. It supports our electron transport chain. It gives us energy. So that's number 1. You're barefoot, you're grounded. It's the biggest thing that's just feeding the energy systems of the body. We get sunlight because you're out in the sun. You get that unpolarized light. The sun's not a laser dot. It distributes equally in every direction. There's refractions as well. But that sun is what feeds us. We're basically a holograph of light. And our bodies are energy, water, silica. We work on pressured systems in our body, and we'll talk about fascia as well in a little bit. But that's what our body's made of. And so our cells communicate through light, the nerves communicate through light. So that's why I use light treatments on him and all our other professional athletes. And We also get minerals from the food, hopefully, if you're sourcing good food. We get it from the air, as Zach Bush would say, breathe in the microbiome, and we're close to the ocean. So we get lots of minerals breathing in the air because waves and particles travel through the air, which is ether or plasma. That's our environment. And then we get it, hopefully, from, and then the water, the conductivity of it all from the water, minerals from the water. So when we're outside in nature, you're getting so many of those elements. So that's what feeds it. So that's why I love beach volleyball. If someone lives in a toxic environment and they're in an electric car, or they have solar on their homes, or there's too much, or their Wi-Fi routers in their room and it's zapping the crap out of them, it'll decharge their body, it will decharge them. So what I look at
Is fatigue one of the symptoms?
Fatigue, it would be all cognitive stuff first. So cognitive. So fatigue would be cognitive.
Like fogginess, like
brain
just,
fog,
like yeah,
behavioral challenges, anxiety, stress, headaches, and that true fatigue sign, lack of sleep. Like those are all the cognitive things that would fall in the cognitive bucket.
right.
And that's where EMF disrupts them. So what I've discovered is the eyes, the teeth, the thymus, which is your electrical system of your body, and your intestines below your belly button. Those are the 4 weak links for EMF for the body. Just as an athlete, like, oh yeah, I sprained my ankle. You know, the joints are typically their weak links. For EMF, it's those 4 areas. So you could take our grounding bag, hold it, tap on it, and direct the properties to your eyes, to your teeth, to your thymus, and to your intestine, and 10x someone's energy right away. So I always look at that. If someone's eyes are off, and I forgot what was off on him. There were a couple that I corrected on him, I believe. But once we get that body battery fully recharged and firing on all cylinders, they're strong, because you're only strong as your weakest link. So if the weak link for the body is their energy system in one of those areas, they're going to be compromised as an athlete.
Right. Yeah. And you know, symptoms are kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had an argument with my friend because he I don't know, he believes in Big Pharma. And I was just like, there's a reason why 76% of the commercials are Big Pharma. And you have like the list of side effects, but it's almost like you can watch a commercial and someone says, "Do you go to sleep at night and wake up the next morning?" And you're like, "Yeah, I got that. I got that. Where's my drugs? You know, what do I avoid or whatever?" So just the inside joke. Not, I mean, somewhat related, but not really, because that's what I do. Because I'm crazy. But what's fascia mean?
Oh, the fascia? Well, that's a framework for the body. I mean, that is what all the bones and muscles are all grown in. Literally. Most of the doctors just cut right through it to get to the tendon or ligament or what have you. But the fascia is the network, the neural network. And I feel it's the intelligence of the body that extends into our biofield, which extends into the ether. It's that profound for me.
We're talking about FASCIA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just got this.
It's that connective tissue that people work on. Like you got the beach doc, like Dr. Tim Brown, who worked on a lot of volleyball players and surfers over the years. And he'll do this fascia releases, his soft tissue releases.
Okay.
There's some great, and same with his brother, Dr. Bill Brown. Like these guys have done fascia work. Now I use Human Garage's system to self-heal, which I recommend everyone do, but you can just do the fascia. If it's a wrist, pull the skin up and that skin you'll just get that pressure released and move the joint around, and you'll feel so much better. There's a free systems online where you could check out, but basically the fascia is the connective tissue, the neural network, the everything in the body that extends out. So that's how, when I close my eyes, I know that where my hand is in space. I know exactly where it is. It's because of my fascia communicating with my biofield, with the energy, with the air around me.
You know, it's weird. Like as human beings, and I remember Joe Rogan saying we're slowly becoming immune to old age, right? And it's because we're understanding what's around us. We're understanding ourselves. We're understanding what makes us old and what makes us young. And now, to me, with that being said, it's about what you're exposed to versus what you can recover from, right?
Right.
I drink a glass of Diet Pepsi every day, right? You can get your aspartame kicked on that, right? But your body recovers from aspartame faster than that or whatever, depending on the body, depending on the mass, the frame. I don't know. Maybe metabolism, maybe not. I'm not going to go there, but I is what you're doing not only enhancing their quality of life, but is it creating I guess long lasting effects where there's reversals in
Yeah.
some things where there would otherwise be deterioration.
I would say so for sure. Because when you make something strong, they're only strong as their weak link. They're going to be strong. And until they get zapped again and go through maybe one of those scanners at an airport or walk in front of a cell tower that zaps them, or who knows what would take them out of their energy field, their whole is way stronger. And we get decharged from emotional, biochemical, structural, physical. So physical would be too much of trauma, like a big trauma. Too little exercise would blow somebody out.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional, thoughts, feelings, stress, and then basically biochemical, food, drink, air, and then the air would be the EMF. So if those would be all things that could downregulate the nervous system.
And it's interesting that you mentioned how, like, as far as healthy sports are concerned, beach volleyball was among them. Like, I was a former indoor player, and man, we train like idiots. I mean, we do everything to test the limits of our body. And at the same time, while you're testing yourself, you're also taxing yourself. And there are some indoor players that get out, and timing is everything. Like John Hyden, who was an Olympian. A lot of people don't know this. Like, and they're like, no, he wasn't in the Olympics for beach, but a lot of people don't know he's on the indoor team, 1996 in Atlanta. And they called him Whiskers. And he's someone that got out of indoor in a timely fashion. Reed Pretty got at 38, and I don't know how his body's not like, the joints aren't coming apart like wax, but what is it about beach volleyball? Well, I'll start from just where my wheelhouse is. I'm a former athlete. I'm a coach. You know what I'm saying? And a commentator. So from my wheelhouse, it's about landing. Like a lot of indoor players teach you how to jump, or coaches, but they don't teach you how to land, right?
Right.
Now you're landing on the heels of your feet, right? It's a matter of time before it shocks your knees. It's a matter of time before it shocks your back. Mostly where the lumbar and sacrum, L5, S1, right, where they kind of meet, and eventually you're hitting shoulder. And a lot of people don't think, what does my hitting shoulder have to do with my landing? All three of those things happen to me gradually, right? And now, from your perspective, from your wheelhouse, I'd love for you to take the steering wheel and explain to my audience some of the benefits of just beach volleyball, maybe comparable to other sports, or you could just talk about it as a standalone. My man, the floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I second everything you're saying. The guys just are ballers that played indoor. Matt Ferbringer was another one of my clients for most of his entire career.
What are you, a Long Beach guy or something like that? And then Beach. I'm not sure what college he played for. He might
Stanford.
No, he's a smart guy. I was gonna say he played for the smart kid school. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Stanford All-American, national champ.
Helped save that program too. You remember they tried to cut it? I don't know if you remember, a few years ago they tried to cut that program.
Yeah. No, they tried to cut a lot of guys' programs.
Ferbringer came, Mike Lambert came. I mean, all of these guys came together, and I'm like, do you know how many Olympians came from like there's just all of their sports teams? Never mind volleyball. Wendy Jones, her son Luke Turner was got accepted there, so she was. If they were Spartans, she was the one. She was King Leonidas. She was on the front going, "What do we do for a living?" Ow. So there's someone you got to meet. Oh my, she'd kill to have someone like you on the podcast. But Talk to me a little bit more about the volleyball. We mentioned Ferbie, and I lost my mind. So continue.
Yeah. So just the training that we do with these guys, on the sand, I mean, they're just so dynamic, so dynamic. His vert was just incredible. He could just jump. You put him on a hard court and he's touching the top of the backboard, like literally with ease. I mean, it's
just
crazy.
It's like, I have to try. When I played, I had to try to do that, right? This is like you said, cruise control.
Yeah. So these guys go through a lot. And for anyone who's learning to play volleyball, and just what you're saying, just second, again, what you're saying is the landing's probably everything. And Dr. Bill Brown, who played growing up as well, he emphasizes this a lot, as well as the landing is where you get all your power. Like if you're not totally bending down and absorbing that landing, that means you didn't come into it like a freight train to bring it on that hit.
Right.
So the landing's everything, and your body is designed to absorb and refire. And you see athletes when they're just standing straight, they're not going to do as much as when they're kind of exploding into it and landing properly.
Right.
And then there's way less impact on the body, so they'll be able to last a lot longer. But for reflexes, for coordination, for overhead, and being in the sand and in the hot elements barefoot, I mean, the volleyball is by far one of the most dynamic sports you could ever play, for sure.
Big up to Ferbie's daughter. It's freshman year in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
she's out there.
She's taken the reins really well, and I'm not sure how they did the first few games, but she's gone. They're number 3 in the nation, I think, going against some of the top teams already. And she's a true freshman. So Joy and Matt, they got some genes that she has.
From my beach guys that don't follow indoor that much, Wisconsin's in the Big Ten, and right now the Big Ten is the strongest conference in NCAA women's volleyball, and it's kind of been that way. With Stanford, has kind of been a standalone and carried the pack for a little bit, but Nebraska's won 2 or 3 times. Penn State was a four-peat champ. Wisconsin was in the finals 3 times and won once, right? And then you got Texas, of course. Kind of a standalone along with Baylor, but the Big Ten, and if you look at the top 10, they have six teams in the top 10, and now I understand USC and UCLA joined them too. So, and I don't know what happened to the pack, and I don't know. I've just been so stuck traveling in beach volleyball, and everyone's like, "Yo, did you hear about the new indoor rule?" And I'm like, "No." What? Seriously? You don't say. Anyway, did you see the AVP? Right? So, did you get a chance to watch any of the AVP? I know you're a big fan, and I know if it's not Laguna Beach, if it's not in the Bay, you could care less, right? Because it's a culture.
No, not at all. No, well, obviously when you're working with some of the guys, I like to follow them. So. And then throughout the years, I've worked with a lot of the guys, even currently on the AVP. So even if they're not my current clients, I had them when they were in high school. So yeah, it's something I love to follow, guys and girls too. And my daughter's 16; she plays a little bit, so it's super fun.
It really is. They had one in Hermosa Beach this past weekend. The AVP wasn't putting one on, so the community of Hermosa Beach got together, spearheaded by a guy named Mark Paulehi. Sorry. No, and I had him on the podcast too, and I couldn't even get it right. This is Mark, and I was like, so big up to them. It was like a legit tournament. They had a Wednesday qualifier, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday tournament. And they were promoting growing the game, and they were promoting inclusiveness, but there wasn't anything more exclusive. Come on, they did it for the boys on 16th Street and had some international players, and that's okay. And that's okay. You know why? Because that used to grow the game and can someday grow the game again, right?
Yeah.
I'll finish by saying this. What does the Hermosa Beach tournament and the New York Yankees and New York Mets Subway Series have in common? The rest of the country doesn't care that it's going on, but they don't care what the rest of the country thinks.
Well said.
And I'll land with that in regards to athletics. Let's talk a little bit about sleep.
Oh yeah, big topic.
I dated a girl in college, and I thought she was just so awesome, so smart. One of these girls, when you're kind of on the move, you want someone that goes forward. You feel like it's like a shark. If you go backwards, they die, right? And just energy for days. And at that time, I had that because I was a full time student and I was coaching NCAA, and I gave up sleep in that respect, and I had trouble sleeping. And then the first night I got to spend with this girl, she took downers to go to sleep and uppers to wake up. And
Wow.
from there I was like, it just killed the buzz or the interest that I had, that I'm like, geez, and I know I sound judgy, but it was like
That's
such, it
not
was kind of
judgy. That's crazy.
such just concession, and I don't want to use a W word like weakness, but it's not. And maybe there's another way to describe that. So talk to me about, within your wheelhouse, of course, why people have trouble actually going to sleep.
Yeah. Well, just to clarify, I wouldn't call it weakness per se. It's just not a lack of awareness. And she got caught into the propaganda of take this for this and take that for that. Drugs aren't health. They're not going to get you there, and they never will. So, yeah, for sleep's one of the biggest buttons for us is to really get our hormones replenished and connect above and have those lucid dreams and create. And the way to do that is to create your environment in your home as close to the resonance as it would be outside into nature.
Right.
And that's what will allow you to get in a deeper sleep. So what does that mean? Well, number one, coherence. So you got to get in a rhythm with your environment. So when it's night out, it's time to go to bed. It's like get your home light, the lights turned down. So it shows that it mimics being at night. Wear blue light blockers if you have screen time. Get that circadian rhythm set. Because if you're watching a screen, you're going to stay up for several hours longer because of the blue light. Your body thinks it's still day. So we got to get into these rhythms of waking up with nature and shutting down, with the light when it goes dark out. And so that's huge.
What's an ideal number of hours sleep?
It's different for everyone, 7 to 8 on up. It just depends, but you got to get,
My wife loves her sleep.
yeah.
If there were ever to be a deal breaker in this relationship, anything that causes her to not get her sleep, I am gone.
Yeah, for sure. And it's those hours before midnight that are key, that you got to get in early. And there's this internal clock in our bodies. I'm a morning person, so I really feel it and notice it. So I like to go to bed early and then wake up early, wake up at 5:30, and just the clockwork. The second that sun's starting to pop up, I'm waking up. I could just have that in me. Not everyone has that, but if I go to bed later, it's a little tougher to wake up now, first thing in the morning. So you got to get that earlier sleep will get you up earlier. And yeah,
Is there a lunar and solar correlation?
definitely this cosmic shifts for sure. So I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole here because you mentioned his name, Arthur Furstenberg. He categorized the history of electricity in life. He wrote a book called The Invisible Rainbow. And interesting enough, he talked about the flu. They called the flu in 1889. Before that was the year we put electricity in our homes. He called it the flu because it would fly in and fly out with solar flares, cosmic shifts, atmospheric pressure shifts. Anytime there's a pressure shift in our electromagnetic blanket of an atmosphere, it disrupts our REM patterns and our bodies. No different than when we introduced radio waves, satellites, radar, and then 5G the last several years. A lot of people got sick those years that we introduced all that stuff. So, and before that, they called it the flu because it would fly in and fly out with solar flares. People would adapt and get sick. And because it was influenza. It was under the influence of the cosmos.
Right. Interesting. And I love the way you put that because now it lands well. Now everyone's like, yeah, cool. Rewind that part on the podcast. What's that little 15-second go back? 15, I'll go back 30. Yep, I want to hear that again. Yeah, so that makes complete sense. And I remember you talking a little bit about that in the Spanish flu and I guess COVID and I guess all the other things. And though I do concede that correlation is not causation, at the same time, you can't ignore these. I just call them patterns. I mean, people can spice up and fancy up the word all they want. There's a pattern,
Yeah.
Like I mean, between you and me, if I see someone with a red truck and a fire hose and got a Dalmatian on this truck, my life experience shows that that's a pattern of being a fireman, a firefighter, right? I could be wrong, right? I got someone with blue lights out there with a badge and a freaking Glock on his holster, wearing a uniform. My experience said that just might be a cop.
Probably.
That was one of my friends, a Dave Chappelle joke. Just because I'm wearing this short skirt, right? And you can see my cleavage, don't make me a hoe. He said, well, maybe not. You know how he is. Like, he's good at cutting off. Well, maybe not. Hope for the best.
I like
So,
it.
So, what's the deal with the 5G? What's up with the 5G? And why is there not necessarily a resistance no, there is a resistance to address this. It just seems like everybody's saying you're a conspiracy rabbit hole, you're this, you're that, right? And to me, my head dips down the rabbit hole when they start attacking the person, right, and not the argument, which, by the way, breaks the number one commandment in the rules of logic.
Right.
There's something called the 10 Commandments of logic. That's commandment number one. Thou shalt not attack the person's character, but the argument.
Right.
And
That's how you lose a debate, when you get personal.
yeah, and well, yeah, it's weird. They win the debate by breaking another rule. They assume a premise is popular, therefore they're right. That's a bandwagon fallacy, right? So those two together create this facade when really, if you're just talking about debate in the classic sense of the word, you're lost. And the reason why I'm asking about this 5G thing is because all they've done was dismiss the person or the character or their reputation. And when you do that, you walk away from the conversation and no one asked, did they actually answer the goddamn question?
Right.
Answer the question. What? First of all, what is the controversy behind 5G? And what has the people who use 5G or implement it done to combat that?
Yeah, so every year they keep ratcheting up these signal strengths, and they have third, fourth, fifth generation of technology, and so technology keeps getting stronger. And so with that, there's more bandwidths, there's different pulsings, there's different types of wave forms inside those bandwidths. So there's multiple bandwidths inside the fifth generation one. So it's really sporadic for the body to handle. The people that don't really feel electromagnetic radiation is a challenge are probably pretty healthy. Like overall, they haven't been nicked. They haven't had any health challenges. They've been really fortunate in life and in a lot of ways. And but when we start to look at the actual science behind it, like the physics behind it, what these things are comprised of, there's no scratching your head, as you're saying. Like there's no scratching your head that this stuff is just absolutely daunting for us in our environment. So yeah, 60 to 90 billion waves per second of a one-directional polarizing waveform in your environment 24/7. What I'm seeing clinically, and I go and I've metered homes for over a dozen years, have all the meters to measure the different levels of stressors. There's a milligauss meter to meter electricity. at 50 to 60 waves per second. There's a Stetzer electric meter. Get it at StetzerElectric.com. Measure dirty electricity at 4,000 to 100,000 waves per second. It measures the amps to volts, any static in the line, which solar will have, which electric cars will emit, with dim switches will emit, with rats eating lines, and the signals going in and out of a junction don't meet. That's where you get dirty electricity. It'll measure, and then you get a wireless acoustometer. It'll measure anywhere from the 50 million waves per second, we're talking the millions, to the billions of waves per second. So you can get all this stuff. My acoustometer, the pretty expensive one, it's a one directional. When I pointed at a cell phone, pointed at the phone.
You're talking about sound and vibration?
No.
For
Acoustometer, like just waveform.
Okay. Oh, got it. Okay.
The meter will start screaming. And then the second I point it away from my phone, the meter quiets down. Point it back at the phone, it starts screaming. So what it's doing is it's picking up on the radiation that's being emitted. Excuse me. The sounds that meter make are exactly the sounds that our nervous system feels. Most humans can't hear. Animals can hear it. Plants' nervous systems feel it. That's what's zapping us. My acoustometer, my one directional wireless meter is not strong enough to meter an old like 4G phone. It meters out. They keep turning these things up. There's not a meter to meter the signal strength of the cell phones currently. So how in the world do we know what the FCC and telecom is emitting? There's not a meter to measure it.
Right.
Not even off your own phone.
Now you're talking about waves. What do we mean by waves? Are we talking?
Well, that's a wavelength, the speed of
Right.
a wavelength. That's the framework of everything,
Right.
and us, and then non-native electricity. So let me ask you this: would you allow your kid to take a fork and stick it in an electrical outlet in your house?
I mean, only if she wets her finger. Only if she wets her finger and
Right.
does the other one. This way we got the Christmas tree effect. But yeah.
Right. Would you allow her to stick a knife in the toaster that's turned on to get the toast out of it?
No.
Well, why? Well, because she's
I had
gonna,
this picture in my
she's
head
gonna
of
electrocute.
what could possibly, what's the worst case? I know, I'm kidding. No, all of these things I've done as a kid because I was,
right.
I had to throw,
But
they threw me in the snow, which is silly.
Yeah, we get electrocuted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like electricity is not good for us.
Right.
Let's just be really clear about that. And for some way along the lines, it's been part of our lifestyle for 140 years because it's such a luxury. And when we ground it out, it's not as bad. But we keep cutting corners, making things that aren't ground properly. They're not wired properly. And it's affecting our health. And then we keep rolling out faster, waveforms and closer proximity, wearable technology, electric cars, all that stuff. And they just zap us. So this 5G thing, it's not going away. Telecom's allowed to go up to 300 gigahertz. That's over 3 times the highest level of 5G. Pretty scary where this stuff is going to go. So right now, it's a necessity for all of us to get grounded by nature and start protecting ourselves and develop usage and proximity protocols with this electricity.
As human beings, is there like we have our own supposed battery? Is there an emission or whatever are we conductors? Or do we emit or take electricity?
Definitely, we're capacitors. Essentially, we're emitting.
That's the word. Thank you.
We're emitting frequencies and absorbing. So that's why they said there's an absorption rating. You'll absorb 6 volts or whatever. Well, that's going to be too much. That's 5 too many that we should be having in our bodies. So definitely we absorb it and then we emit it. Remember that biofield that goes out 6 to 8 feet? That's our resonance. So we're emitting frequencies and we absorb them.
Right. Jesus, I'm having Matrix movie flashbacks on using human beings as batteries. You ever see that Keanu Reeves movie? Red pill, blue pill. I don't know. See that book behind you? that red pill revolution, actually, one was for the pandemic, and then there was a redo of that in regards to carnivorism versus veganism and this and that. So, um,
You got some good books back there, by the
isn't
way.
it funny? I mean,
A lot of good books. A
the,
lot of good
dude, the
books.
one that's laying flat is the one that nobody sees. What is that? Is that the real Anthony Fauci?
You got the real Anthony Fauci. Let's just go over these books real quick because I'm liking them. You got Scars and Stripes, little Tim Kennedy action there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Former Navy SEAL, I believe.
Yep.
Fool's Errand. You got the red pill. I don't see Tom Cowan's Contagion Myth back there. I don't see the Invisible Rainbow yet, but we're gonna get those back there too.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. You know what's interesting about the real Anthony Fauci, right? Like, some of the things that were said in that book, he would have been sued by now. Like, there's been no liability, no lawsuit, no damages, which really just makes you think. And that thing is, I'm almost done with it. That thing is mind blowing. You know?
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, Robert Kennedy Jr. has really brought the forefront of health and what's going on with the higher ups and how
and again,
run.
And it's weird because like we said before, you go after the person instead of the argument, right? And it's like I said way before in the beginning of this, what you say to the media is one thing, but what you say in court is another, right? The guy's an environmental lawyer. You know, he's the reason where New Yorkers are allowed to go kayaking in the Hudson. You know, so I think in the body of work he's done more good than bad.
For sure. For his career. And as a litigator, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, at least some of the subject matter you introduced, for anyone to say it's not a discussion is not being honest, right? I'm not. You could say he's wrong, but bring some of the stuff he's bringing up to even suggest that it's not open to a discussion when we have a historical correlation of going hard in the paint against these people, only to find that we're wrong, right? Dude, we can't even get eggs right. Right, in the 70s, eggs are bad for you. In the 80s, boiled eggs are good for you, right? In the 90s, egg whites, right? Egg whites, right? And now they just threw up their hands and said, "The hell with it, do what you want. It's a top 10 fat burner. Let's go, right?" So can't even get eggs right. What the hell? What are we even talking about here, right? You know. So, and again, environmental lawyer, his history of doing things well, and none of his family likes him. They all denounce him, but I think the only two people that did like him got shot. So consider that, right? I could think of two Kennedys that wouldn't have denounced him.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a big topic right there. Fauci's the highest paid medical doctors, I believe.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was the longest running government employee. So the way the government works, the longer you're there, the more you make. So he was the highest paid because he was in it for 40 years.
No, but he was dipping. He was he was backdooring. He didn't.
Well,
he didn't
I was
get money
just talking
paid.
about government salary.
No, I'm talking about getting paid from rolling out drugs.
Yeah. Well,
as health through
there's at least
he rolled out the vaccines.
2 drugs.
He's rolled out drugs. He's rolled out all that stuff. That's where he's making his money.
Right. Well, without knowing his private life, I can think of 2 drugs, and that he's making $150,000 a year in royalties for the rest of his life and his children.
Right.
As long as the drug is being manufactured. Right. Which, again, if we're going to dip into a rabbit hole, that makes you think why certain things are still on the market and why things are pushed through EU, emergency use, EUA, emergency use authorization. And he's out. He's leaving, smelling like a rose, and your camera's out. So I'm just going to fix that. Let's do that. So let's go back to me for a second. This camera has been turning off by itself, and I don't know why. But I am going to use this camera just in case. This one works like a charm.
By the way, this setup in here is so next level. So for anyone who's seen it and going, oh, the camera went out. No, this setup is one of the next levels that I've been in. And I podcast all the time. I've been in a lot of big podcast rooms. And this one's one of my favorite. Darren Olean had a good setup too.
Darren Olean?
Yeah. Candy Ken had a good setup. I mean, there's some guys that have some good setups. And Kyle Kingsbury, he had a good little setup too. There's some good ones out there.
Gotcha.
So this is a really nice setup.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right. I'll figure this out later, but I'll get you your substitute camera now.
All right. He's got cameras everywhere.
Gotcha.
Everywhere.
Jeez.
Yeah, there it is. Look at that.
It's not the same res, but that'll work.
You got the flag behind me, my book, one of my books. You got it dialed.
That's glory, baby.
Yeah, we got to put that book on the shelf next.
Well, that comes next, yeah. Well, yeah, look, I'm not one of those people that pretends I'm an avid reader. In fact, I hate to read, but when someone recommends me a book, I'll read it. In fact, I read everything there. I'm not done with Fool's Errand. Almost done with the real Anthony Fauci. Barack Obama, The Promise. I like that because, I don't know, he's mixed. He's half black, half white. I'm half black, half white. So growing up and going through the whole identity thing was totally relatable, like outside of politics. And honestly, whatever you think of the man or whoever you voted for, I can say two things. One, when the rest of the world knew that guy was our president, they're like, okay, sweet. There's someone that's sane, he's crooked the sane way, and may he join us in peace. So one, and two, as far as being well-spoken and articulate and just knowing how to just address the public, probably only Bill Clinton was better. Bill Clinton was smarter. I thought Barack was a better speaker.
Orator.
Yeah. I mean, anyone's ever met Bill Clinton, there's this white light behind him, right? And whenever he moves, like the people with him, like pigeons to birds to bread, I mean, they unwittingly, impulsively, instinctively just kind of, you know what I'm saying? They move with him.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was at a party at the Waldorf. My old employer, Dr. Rosenfeld, kind of this doctor of the stars. I worked for him for 17 years. He got an award called American Heart Association's Physician of the Year. And it was at the Waldorf Astoria, and everyone was there. Just Marvin Hamlish, you know what I'm saying? I think Ron Howard, just like a who's who. And I was there. Actually, it's worth telling the story. I started there as a file clerk. You're going to love this. Started there as a file clerk, and he only invited 3 people. He invited his accountant, right, his assistant, and he invited me. There's only 2 guys in the whole office. So someone told me it was a black tie affair, right? So I'm just this kid from Brooklyn. I'm like, cool, I'm black and I got a tie, right? I got it covered. And what I didn't know is that it was a black tie affair. For you morons at home, black tie affair means tux. You got to wear a tuxedo, right? So, and I'm like, I can't, So I made up this excuse why I couldn't go. I had school or whatever, and this and that. And Helen was like, you really can't go. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a tux, right? And so, this guy, dude, he gets his driver, right, and drives me to Bergdorf Goodman. The driver drives me to Bergdorf Goodman, and they fit a tux. They fit a tux, and I end up going. And I still have the tux in my closet, right?
Nice.
Everybody's like, oh, man, you made up story. No, I actually have the tuxedo still in my closet. I haven't worn it, But I thought that was pretty cool. But imagine going to Bergdorf Goodman, right? And you got like 2 tailors and a model, right? And they think they're helping Dr. Rosenfeld, right? And they're like, wait, is it for you or for him? I'm like, it's for me. And they're just like, they all go home.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. So, sorry, I just thought that was a pretty cool thing. Let's talk something. I want to cover the subject of detoxing your body, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as far as health, how you train, what you eat, you know, how you, being in the sunlight, being exposed to EMFs or whatever. I know it takes years to F up your body, right? So of course working on healing and reversing some of those things similarly would not happen overnight, right? From an electromagnetic field perspective, which is your wheelhouse, what is the best way to either A, detox your body, B, do preventive maintenance, and C, understanding, maybe self-diagnosing where you are and where you want to go?
Yeah, so preventative, obviously understand proximity protocols, usage protocols, detoxing your body. You got to do a few different things. You got to use our grounding bags, EMF Rocks grounding bags in your environment. You could go through our tapping protocol. Make sure your methylation pathways are open. So methylfolate, diatomaceous earth, Irish sea moss, rehydrate, remineralize your body. Some of Supreme Nutrition products for adrenal support will help with glucose levels, because the cortisol gets messed up, then your glucose gets messed up.
Right.
And we have a lean oil, MCT oil, that is great for lean oil. The MCT oil will buffer the glucose spiking. So in 1889, there were only 6 cases of diabetes across the entire world back then.
Right.
6 across the whole world 140 years ago. Now it's one of the fastest growing
Jeez.
things. So
Right.
we got to look at the internal environment, what we're putting in, but we got to look at the external environment. So there's some great stuff like that, MCT oils that will buffer the glucose spiking.
I'm doing that twice a day.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, I got one. I'm just checking to see if this actually, my original camera actually stays on. The backup camera is going to stay on. That's fine.
Yeah.
I plugged it into a different wall just to see. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not
The
switching
camera's
back.
on, but this
I'm not
one's,
switching back.
this one's lit up.
Honestly, I like you better this way. This is. I don't know if you have a good side or a bad side, or if you don't have a bad side, but
I don't
yeah.
know.
So okay.
It's indifferent.
Yeah. No, well, the reason why I was asking is because I understand. My boss wrote a book called Doctor, What Should I Eat? Right? And he's someone that was a millionaire, right? But not a millionaire, and he didn't care about being a billionaire, right? So when someone is neurologically addicted to money or greed, right, they're going to do whatever they have to whatever. So there's human error that crosses paths, swords, should I say, with practicing medicine. So you trust someone more that's already got his money, right? Can't really cancel him. I mean, the 90s wasn't the cancel culture time anyway. Those were Gen Xers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were just some things, myths that he can bust, myths that he was totally honest about, like about chocolate and aphrodisiac, and there's this, there's that, but really we don't know. You know what I'm saying? It was just this honest assessment, and I read this book, and I started replacing foods for ailments instead of supplements or medications, which wasn't a lot for me because I was never a drug person. Mm-hmm. I would take Z-Pak to let a virus ride its course or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I would take something to save my life, but so instead of iron tablets, right? Just red meat. I understand cold spinach is good too, and I understand when you cook spinach, it loses its nutritional value. This is weird, right? I understand fat burners, right? Like Californians love avocado. That's their number one fat burner. Eggs, cashews, turkey legs. So I was 265 at the time, and I got as low as 186, and kind of like had
Good
a
for
net
you.
weight split the difference. At 200, I just felt stronger. That was my volleyball playing weight.
Yeah.
Even though 185, I felt a little weaker, but I felt like I could fly.
I bet. No, but you look good. You're strong.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't look 54. Like I said, I look like a creepy 35. No, but I was just offering another example. Your wheelhouse, mine. I would call that my wheelhouse because I've done it from experience, and I've actually teached it, made mistakes. Right now, I'm on a little carnivore tip.
I like it.
Yeah. Which one of my friends is like, I'm neurologically addicted to meat. And I'm like, no, honestly, Meat makes you not hungry. it's the other way around. You don't want to eat that much after you do that. So yeah. So thoughts about on the stuff that might be something in which you have a high knowledge of, but not necessarily the electromagnetic field thing.
On intake wise,
Yeah, just taking care of yourself,
oh
preventive
man,
maintenance.
I think you got to listen to your body on everything and see which revving. So we'll go in and out. Some days bacon and eggs will be my just go to every morning, and some I won't eat until dinner. Like it's there's no rhyme or reason. I just listen to what my body's asking. So
Yeah.
I would just lean in on that, but just source really clean food,
Yeah.
clean water, clean air. This is just get a chemically free body going. That's a good website, by the way. Non-Toxic Dad's a good Instagram account. You can get proper cooking, stainless steel without nickel in it. Like little stuff like that is huge to get the toxic, heavy metal toxic load out of our system. Start buying, really growing your own food. There's a whole thing called food forest abundance where you're growing your own food, creating food forests. Like, why do we need to go get wax sprayed, appeal chemicals? Like I scrape an apple with a knife and I can wax my surfboard with it. It's disgusting. Like that's what they're putting in our food. So go grow your own food and have it out there. Our government should be putting food up on all these curbs. The ecosystems will normalize any rodent infection, infestation. You could feed so many people, get rid of weight loss, get rid of hunger, and build the health of our whole community. So easy, just growing food. Every
Right.
green belt, grow food.
Yeah, guys, be careful of listening to people who know that there's no profit in the actual cure. you know,
Right.
like everybody I listen to, and everyone they're like, I don't listen to this guy, I don't listen to that guy. I always pose the difficult question: what are they gaining by telling me this?
Right.
They have almost everything to lose and nothing to gain.
Right.
Dr. Peter McCullough, who spoke out against and like myocarditis, it's his reputation. He's the most published physician
Right.
in the history of publications, right?
Right.
So, but that's the pattern. The pattern is it's always someone who is their immortal beloved and they're a rock star until they spoke out against the majority, right? And all of a sudden they've been a crack their whole life, but even though they have not, when you look at their pattern. So,
Oh yeah.
the last thing I wanted to talk about, because I don't know where you gotta go. You seem like always have a busy guy. I want to get on the personal note. How did you get into this? What inspired you to do this? I mean, what you're doing right now, how does that even manifest? How does that create?
Yeah, it's wild. It's been a big journey. I grew up in LA here and played tennis growing up and wanted to play at SC, and I got hurt before I was able to play. So that's what really got me into athleticism.com, and I started out at Scripps Clinic in La Jolla and had an incredible mentor. So I wanted to literally have a life of service, helping people achieve the level of performance they wanted to. And that's what keeps driving me day to day, is that I have a gift for working with them. I can see things most people can't. And then the next step was, how do I help more people? Because I can only see so many per day. So that's where the products come in. And so we keep rolling out these incredible curated health products. And I just looked at what our environment was looking like. And the easiest way to get someone better is clean up their environment. They get better. So it's been this long journey, almost 30 years, with just some incredible athletes. And, Ferbie's got his name on Manhattan Beach Pier. And, it's been so much fun with guys like that and so many more that just feed my soul every day.
What was the inciting incident or the moment 30 years ago that made you say, this is my jam. This is something I'm going to do?
Well, I always knew it, but I didn't know what lane. until I read an article in a paper about this guy named Dean Brittenham making athletes better athletes. And that's where I was like, okay, that's it. Because I'm like, I didn't want to, chiropractic wasn't in my lane at that time, unfortunately. But I didn't want to be an acupuncturist. I didn't want to derobe and massage. I didn't want to be a PT and deal with post-op all the time. I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't know the lane of where I could be a true performance coach, be outside, get people moving, jumping, get faster, get more explosive, get more coordinated, get into these lower, slower brainwave states that are optimal for performance. Teach people how to juggle and have eye speed and recognition programs, and then actually facilitate healing instantly. Like literally, we can get rid of pain instantly with stuff, get concussions back faster. So that's what got me into the primal reflex stuff and the nerve work, stretching, and fascia work. And then we throw in red light therapy. And so it's been this incredible storytelling, but it all relies on, some of, the experience that I had, shortcomings or nicks that I had along the way to get me there.
And I'm very, very impressed that, look, there are some people who want to help people, but their method is just kicking the can down the road, right? There are certain doctors, write a RX, get a check, right? Take this medication, whatever. Then there's some people that are, even chiropractors, got to get your back cracked, but it's not making your back muscle strong. It's not doing this. It's just something you have to do. But it's not creating a reversal. What you're doing right now, you are enhancing people's quality of life, right? From the elite athletes just to people who need help. And I'm always happy to have people like that on my podcast, because the reason I made this podcast, I just thought it'd be a good place for me and my friends to talk smack, talk ash or whatever, just get together and whatever. But when it's branched out to this, thank you. Thanks for coming on about this. And I have a lightning round. I have 60-second lightning round. I don't know if you'll be able to answer these questions, because someone like you probably doesn't have time for
let's go
small talk questions.
Come on now.
But I wanted to recommend your book, Athleticism, the Whole Body, Whole Brain, and Performance. It's behind him over there. Actually, let's get a little shot of it. There it is, next to Oh Glory. You standing next to Oh Glory just makes me proud to be an American. I just want to get on that plane, fly to New York, go to the Statue of Liberty, rip off that giant schmuck and see a French bikini.
That's
and
right.
Let it shine.
There you go. I'm a
For
patriot.
America.
I'm a patriot.
For America. All right, so let's get our countdown clock. And I got my horn. And all right, let's do it. And go. Favorite comedian?
Sam Tripoli.
Alaska book you read?
Oh, goodness sake. I'm going to say I just reread Invisible Rainbow, Arthur Furstenberg, again.
Nice. Last good movie you watched, be it in the theater or on TV?
Oh, I don't really watch movies.
There you go. Marvel or DC? After I just the movies.
What's that?
Marvel or DC?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Pool or beach?
Oh, beach.
Ice cream or cupcakes?
Neither.
Neither. Okay. Bourbon, vodka, or tequila?
Tequila.
Californian, of course. Favorite sport as a spectator?
Basketball.
Favorite sport as a participant?
Basketball. Volleyball second on both.
Nice. Favorite action film star growing up?
Oh, goodness sake. I'm going to say Sensei Benny the Jet, Urquidez.
Nice. And the favorite conspiracy rabbit holes?
Favorite conspiracy? They're not conspiracies.
He said we almost made them out.
They're not
We
conspiracies,
almost made it out of this.
They're not conspiracies. They've all shown to be true.
Right. Well, I have my favorite one, or just the one that's the most intriguing to me, is the Kennedy assassination, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Well, again, only speaking to my wheelhouse. I'm an expert on the M16A2, and I'm an expert on the Beretta.
Wow.
And I just think it's very difficult for someone to make that shot with a bolt-action rifle. Where the scope moves and let off 3 shots in like 7.1 seconds and hit the president twice in the head, right?
Look at you. I can...
Look behind you. What does that badge say? That badge says expert.
I love it. So I'll second that on pretty much every major industry. So dental industry, probably the biggest lies in the history. Like, oh, let's put mercury in our mouth when the only place you can dispose of it toxically is toxic waste disposal.
But for YouTube purposes, mercury is safe and effective.
But it's great in your mouth. Like, what? I mean, come on. And then shots are great for you and your health and, vaccine, all that stuff. And then glyphosate's great. It'll feed more people. No. I mean, you go on and now with electric car. Oh my goodness. You get me on the electric car fad. We'll talk for another hour, but that's.
I was going to say, you got to come back for that.
Oh, for
you
sure.
You got to come back for that.
That one is the biggest.
In fact,
thing.
I want me and Wendy Jones to come on.
Let's go.
She has something called Be Better Media.
Okay.
Just enhancing people's life through mental health, or she's more of a mental person, the psychology part. And my goodness, that would be great. I want to sit on that one. I want to sit on that one. So definitely come back on that. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Also, I'll give you a recommendation, a reading one. One of my previous guests, Phil Escott, he tours around the world and talks about the benefits of carnivores or whatever. And this and MD show up like all over the world to his seminars. And he wrote a book called How Rheumatoid Arthritis Saved My Life.
Wow.
So he had so spoiler a little bit. There was just a doctor that had him on a slew of medications. He was 260, had a cane, couldn't walk, and then cut certain foods out of his life, and then added certain foods to his life. Got rid of the cane. Started walking, started running, dropped the weight, and he saw his doctor. His doctor's like, you need to go back on the drugs. And he told the doctor, the nicest way he could, thank you, and whatever. And then before he left, he's like, have you ever seen anything like this? And the doctor's like, no. And he's like, I've seen this. You're a doctor, right? And I've seen this 6 times. And I play the drums. I'm a drummer. So before we go, particular website or Instagram handle, someone wants to get to know what you've been up to, what you're about.
Yeah, Jason, check it out, athleticism.com. That's spelled athleticism.com for all those you can't spell. That'll have all of our Cure to Health products, emfrocks.com. EMF Rocks will have our grounding bags, Faraday bags, and more. You can find me on Instagram at Athleticism Neuro Stacking. At EMF Rocks, and on Fridays I take over Human Garage's Instagram account, and that is Human Garage, Friday noon Pacific time. They have about 1 million followers, so it's a fun talk. A lot of big speakers come on. I had Tom Cowan on last week, and we have some big names that come and talk with us on that, so we'll have you on as well. And so that's where you can find me and hear more about EMFs, fascia, and our environment.
Let's do it. All right, this guy might love you. Justin Frandson might love you, but I don't love any of you guys. In fact, I'm out of here. In fact, someone's trying to call me after my phone said do not disturb. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads, for all of you on your iPhones, for all of you on the lunch line at Starbucks, from my man Justin, I'm Jason DeBiss. This is the episode 216 of the Option Podcast. We're going to hit my music. We are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.